TheDaathPath, episode 5. Gonna be talking about spirituality and mental health. Got my good brother here, Liam. Probably recognise his words from the guy asked me all the questions from the previous episodes. We're just gonna get into an interesting topic today. Before I say anything else, I will say, I don't have any medical qualification or what in terms of mental health and whatever. Anything that I express here is more just personal thought and opinion and perspective, as always. I'm not gonna try and proclaim to be somebody health expert, but at the same time, there shouldn't be afraid to look at things through your own perspective and view sometimes. You know what I mean? Let's go on.
Yeah, totally. So as you're aware, the 10th of October is World Mental Health Day, and that's one of your episodes, and this is episode 5.
That's right, bro.
Technically 6 because we had the part 2. We had a couple of part 2s.
Oh there, yeah, true. But yeah,
we've got a few questions here. First of all, see, being based on mental health, how are you?
I'm good, man.
You good?
Yeah, I can't complain.
Yeah, you happy with things that are going with the TheDaathPath?
Yeah, I am. Just humbled by some of the feedback that I'm getting, seeing that people are liking the content, people starting to resonate with the message. Knowledge, power, self-revelation. I feel like people are starting to get it now. To get me the process of being able to get to your own level of understanding. I'm just happy to keep. This stuff, this stuff comes out of man naturally. So just happy to keep putting it out there.
Because it must have been stressful at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Before you launched, like compared to you now, where so you can deliver consistent episodes.
Yeah, bro. I think with that, especially going back to the first episode and that, it was just a case of, do you know what? Do it. People, you've had so many people over the years telling you, you should be doing this, you should be doing that, you got to do something. The way that you speak, I have it in other fields as well, where I've been getting the same things. Like, you know what? Stop being a coward, do you get me? Go out there and do something, do you know what I mean? Go out there and manifest something, put your work to the test type thing. So one day, so you know what? I just decided. And just make up my mind.
A few questions for you. So firstly, how does the HonouRebel one define mental health?
How do I define mental health? Your state of mind. Your mental health is your state of mind, where you are, like I said, with that inner voice in your head. Do you know what I'm saying? The voice that you use in your head to read, that inner voice. Behind closed doors. How well are you within that person within? Type thing. Yeah, that's how I would describe it.
Okay.
Why you asking me that one?
I feel like the definition of mental health is obviously interpreted differently. A lot of different people's perception, and don't know. Me personally, I feel like the word mental is always derived negatively by people, and I feel like it should be more of a positive connotation to the word. So I just feel like sometimes people interpret that differently. You may define it differently, being on a daft path as to others. In terms of one's mental health, what impact do you want the TheDaathPath to have on its followers?
Yeah, good question. The impact I'd like it to have is to give a different perspective, a different way of looking at mental health. I don't think what's considered enough in mainstream is the spiritual aspect to mental health, and looking at some of the physical effects through potentially a spiritual cause, because state of mind and a sense of spirituality are ultimately linked. So your mental health, where you are within that inner person within yourself, is essentially what we in spirituality define as your connection with the higher self, with the inner you. So there's a gap there of not necessarily understanding what people are going through, because you're purely looking at it from a physical, medical, biological lens, when there's the layer behind that? Do you know what I mean? What's the cause? What's the cause? If you accept that there's a spiritual element to yourself, how could you ignore that in understanding your mental health? Again, it's just my view.
What's going on that? Would you then agree or disagree that prescription pills to aid or cure mental health issues?
I said before, like, the whole pharmacy thing is pharmakeia, which is sorcery, it's alchemy. So using chemically induced like medications and whatnot from a pharmaceutical perspective, I mean, I'm not one to say what someone should and shouldn't do for their own mental health, but just from my perspective, if you can make a concoction of chemicals to produce a particular effect, that's on a physical level. I'm interested in the spiritual cause behind that physical effect. Do you know what I'm saying? If a set of chemicals can be produced to produce an effect in the brain, that's only a carbon copy, a mimic of what happens on the spiritual level, because it's from the spiritual plane, the astral plane, into the physical that we come. Do you understand? So we experience a perception of reality is based upon what the mind is.
Only the brain.
Yeah, what the mind is, subconscious mind is programmed to believe is possible. So when people are saying, that hearing or seeing things or whatnot, how you should be able to understand.
Yeah, how can you disprove that?
How can you disregard that element of the fact that potentially could be true? Do you know what I'm saying? It potentially could be for real, because now we're acknowledging the fact that there's things unseen and beyond the physical that have an impact in the physical world.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And it even goes on with, like, if you say that autism, for example.
Yes,
now,
bro.
there's if you compare the amount of people that have been diagnosed with autism now compared to 100 years ago, 50 years ago, it's something that people now are becoming more and more aware, where they can put it in a category of mental health issue, but now it's autism. So now they will find a different way to then bring it back to mental health issue if they want to. But if not, it will just stay the autism. But that's also on a different spectrum. So effectively, would you say mental health is loads of things just on different spectrums?
Speaking on the autism thing, right? Some of the people that I've met with autism, I've been able to do some amazing things. Do you know what I'm saying? And where we may consider them be deficient in certain areas, it's like they're superhuman in other areas. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And to me, that's like, if we are an expression of the infinite source. Every soul is a fragment of the infinite source in spirituality, right? So if you've got someone with a soul, and that soul is expressing something in a physical format where we identify as autism, it's like only looking at it from the physical effect. It's like, for me, that there's not enough of the story being told there as to why we're seeing that, because people that we consider with certain mental health conditions could actually be displaying, bro, the next step in where we need to go in terms of being able to hear certain wide range of frequencies and whatnot.
Yeah,
do you know what I'm saying?
I totally agree.
Autism, schizophrenia, them sort of. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's where I feel like just more discussion, at least more discussion of, if we can talk about the spirit and the impact of the spirit and the soul and getting your mind, controlling your thoughts, controlling your environment, controlling your actions to therefore align to your outcomes, right? To get what you want. We can acknowledge the spirit in that sense. Why would we not want to acknowledge the element of someone's connection with the unseen, someone's connection with the spiritual, as to a root cause to some of the physical effects that we see in people that I think we're too quick to call defects.
What would you say are the biggest threats to our mental health?
Biggest threats to our mental health? Subconscious programming. I would say so. As I said before, subconscious programming through the things that you consume repeatedly through the media, massively, right? The subconscious mind is programmed by a couple of things: trauma, repetition. For the things that you consume and constantly bombarded with in terms of images, you might take in words, but the subconscious mind is processing a whole bunch of other information and attaching symbols to the meanings of words, on where a certain phrase is made in connotation to an image is planting seeds in the subconscious mind. So then it's building a view of starting to connect the dots on what's possible and what's necessarily true and not true, and what you hold on to. And like I said before, if you're not aware of how the subconscious mind works and how you absorb information, you can be unconsciously influenced to think a certain way or act a certain way in a particular scenario. Do you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, anything out of balance is going to be a threat. Do you understand? So just make sure you have an order with that.
What books would you say has had the most positive impact on your mental health?
On my mental health. Let me first go into the fact that I don't think I would consider myself as someone having a mental health issue in the way it's commonly described. When you go on a path of spiritual development, right, there is this concept of hearing the inner voice. And there are instances, there have been instances where, you get a complete moment of clarity, and it's almost like you hear like a voice, almost like it's behind your ear, as close as someone's whispering in your ear, and certain information drops on you. Do you know what I mean? So I would openly say, yeah, there's times where you do hear a voice. You do hear a voice, but through knowledge becoming power and then revealing certain things yourself through self-revelation, you begin to acknowledge it as not something that's necessarily to be scared of, or something that is necessarily going to be bad. Do you understand what I'm saying? You all you're doing is listening to the inner you. Some people could easily describe that as hearing voices, but you say that phrase, hearing voices, automatically you're programmed to believe this person is unstable and not on their right mind. No, it's about, imagine your intuition, turn up loud. What's that? Do you know what I'm saying? And you're compelled to go and to do something on this, that, and the first. So if you're in tune and in control of that, rather than being vulnerable to impulses, if someone wanted to describe it as that, it's something that becomes to guide you on certain things. So it's about it's about not thinking yourself in a different position, considering yourself as master of self, rather than being a victim of all these physical ailments. Flip the script. You're born into perfection. Yeah, this is going back to the first couple episodes now. Just get me. You're born into perfection. It's about understanding, the degree of that perfection, the reasons why things are the way they are. Do you know what I'm saying? And we are ignorant of the perfection within. So we're looking at things from a place of it must be wrong. What if it's right? What if it's right, brother? And it's showing us something else about ourselves that we've been programmed to ignore, because you're now touching on, like you said, things going into the unseen that can't be controlled. That's something that's not tangible. It's outside of length, breadth, time and space. How do you control that? How can you control the thoughts of people that can tap into them sort of abilities? Do you know what I mean? Best thing to do is just label them crazy and you just ignore them. So going back to your question around what books have helped my mental health, what I would describe my mental health as is being in tune with my inner voice. Similar state to when people say when they meditate. Yeah, and going into oneself, and astral travel and all those sort of lucid dreams and all those sort of things. that's what when I say my mental health, that's what I'm talking about. I got books there, but astral dynamics and whatnot. That's actually definitely a big book there. And then also things by like Muata Ashby, Kinetic Tree of Life, is a big one. The reason why I say that is it was really good at laying down the foundation of the concepts of the Netaru, which people refer to as gods, but in Kemetic science, it's just principles of nature. I was lacking in the basic foundations of what these different images and symbols represented, and that book gave me the foundation to be able to begin to recognize certain attributes and traits of the Netaru within myself. I was like, okay, that's what the Kemetic people was talking about when they're talking about, Horus with the falcon head, or Tahuti with the head of the ibis, to represent the writing, to represent precision, to represent articulation of knowledge and wisdom and power. By understanding that, it just unlocked all the different areas in terms of seeing myself more than just a body. Is like really allowing me to begin to identify with the enemy, with some of that knowledge there, and that's like then turning into power.
Transferring that energy.
Yeah, how fine. This is what the Kemetic people were saying. This is what Kemetic science says. How have I reconciled that information to how it relates to me in my current existence? That's when it becomes powerful. And then that power becomes the gateway to them self-revelation moments, which some people might refer to as, you know what I mean, hearing voices and them thing there. It's not crazy. It's going into the ether and bringing back something that you need for this particular lifetime or this particular moment. It's the power of a million, bro. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
How much control does one have over one's mental health?
Technically, how much one? Technically, you should have control of your mental health, right? But when you are ignorant of the mechanics of your own mind, when you are ignorant of your triggers, as to why you behave in a particular way, most people can't really say they do have control over their mental health because of some of those factors. I find that the pursuit of knowledge of self through spiritual study allows one to at least see the full playing field. I'm not necessarily saying that reading and studying occult wisdom and spiritual knowledge is going to fix all your problems, but it gives you a toolkit of how to navigate your own mind when you're going through stressful situations. It allows you to identify the vulnerabilities that you might have within your mind. Giving examples of myself, like you said, setting up TheDaathPath exactly for the first time, and that mad stresses, whole load of combating thoughts of, should I really be putting myself out there? Is anyone really going to understand what I'm saying? People say I'm going to be waffling. Who is this guy? Talking a load of controversial, crazy stuff on the surface until you take the time to listen to the science. So it's all of that, but it was like, because of the preparation that I'd gone through with my own self-study, I'd put myself in a position where I was confident enough and aware enough in my mind to say, even if this ain't for everyone, it's not about it being for everyone. It's about being an authentic example of what can be done if you choose to go down. If this knowledge is something that really captures your curiosity and really something that you just want to know just for the sake of knowing, not to gain power. And that's something I learned from people like Brother Panic and Bobby Hemmett and them masters. They keep the integrity of the pursuit of the knowledge of self. You just want to know so bad. You will sit there and you will study or watch lectures because it's something that's fueling and pricking you. This is that's for you. This is for you. Do you know what I'm saying? Because though study and show thyself approved, those that are doing the work recognize others that are doing the work. Do you know what I mean? And then they'll pick up from it, get when they forget from it, and then again continue to navigate your own path. It's not a communal thing. It's not a congregation thing. It's what can we learn from one another, but at the same time, the pursuit is self. And by pursuing self, it's kind of how you create the harmony. Because then you create the same one understanding. Do you understand?
100%. I agree.
That is how one can keep their mental health in check. But understanding it's about self and understanding you're on a journey to discover self in this life. You know what I mean?
Why is it, do you think, that not a lot of men talk about mental health?
I talk from my own perspective, right? I talk from my own opinion. I think it's because men have been conditioned in an idea of what masculinity is, and it's in error, like erroneously been thought of as, in order to be masculine and coming over fragility. That's not true. That's not true. Yes, a man is meant to provide. Yes, a man is meant to be seen as a pillar of strength in society and especially within the family unit. But it doesn't necessarily mean that a man cannot express when he's vulnerable, when he's not necessarily feeling like that, because it's not natural to be like that all the time. Sometimes the sway into vulnerability is, opening up a new pathway for you to learn something new about yourself, or it's an area for development and growth that's causing you pain in the moment, but it's expressing itself as a bit of depression, a bit of breakdown. It's not. I can't say something I feel like I've ever experienced myself, things like depression and whatnot, but I've been really, really low at times, things that I've gone through in my life, and I've even got to a point where I've considered, is this what people feel like when they begin to be depressed? I've had that thoughts about myself, you get me? And then you just sit there and check yourself for real, like, is this what it feels like? Not really knowing, maybe if someone sat there and diagnosed me, they would maybe say they would have, but in myself, I don't feel like I've been through that, but I've been through points where I've had to really, be honest with myself in the mirror when no one's around. Do you know what I mean? And be for real with myself about where I am and how I'm feeling about things, and then it's like, as a man, I allow myself to run with moments. Time and place for certain things. Yeah. But I allow myself to run with moments if I feel like my emotions are getting to that point. I allow myself to rumble. I might have a little cry about something. Do you know what I mean? If it takes me there, because I realise I'm going through the process, I have to get myself through the process. If I'm gonna get over this feeling, I've got to work through it. I can't run and hide, because you try and put a cork in it and it builds up and then it bulges and the pressure builds up somewhere else in your life. You get me? And you don't even realise that it's expressing itself in a different part of your life because you didn't deal with it there. So I find that spirituality allows me to manage the ups and downs, the pendulum swings, in a more harmonious manner. I can't get rid of the pendulum swing. It's always going to be positive and negative. There's always going to be good days, bad days, ups and downs. But it's one, being aware of that fact, and then two, understanding what you can do to control how much something that you consider negative is going to impact you. How much something positive is going to impact you. Do you understand? And then you begin to become master of your emotions by beginning to become master of your mind, by seeing yourself through a spiritual lens, not just the physical man or woman. It's who am I really behind the shell? And by understanding that, it's like, okay, fine, when I understand a bit more about who I am behind the shell, what is it that is being projected here from that dark, from that darkness, from that unseen, that I'm seeing the effect of? And it's like they don't want people to take the time to begin to consider themselves in that manner, because it's like what if these men wake up? What if these men wake up to what is really truly possible with the human condition when you add that last bit of ingredient of spiritual understanding of who you are beyond the flesh.
Yeah. And the analogy that I would use with that would be to look through the lens of you holding a mirror in front of you.
Yeah.
Where you have to see yourself before you see anyone else. So if you have that perception as the world's behind you,
yeah,
and you have a mirror, you have to see yourself before you see anyone else. So the light will travel through you.
Yeah.
So you, as you said, echoing your point, to learn about yourself as to project backwards is to see who you are, to then see what you're going to be projecting onto other people and to projecting into the world.
Really. Yeah, 100%.
So I totally agree.
Yeah, and you begin to maybe this. I actually want to ask you a question in a minute. You begin to be able to take accountability, be a responsibility.
100%.
For yourself a little bit more, because you understand the cause from where that is coming from, and it takes time and effort and a lot of pain to be able to get to those self-revelation moments of
course,
I get where that's coming from now in me,
and that's
the honesty. Do you get me?
Yeah, to interject, I would say that I think it comes. A lot of us are stubborn as well. I think once you start to get rid of that stubbornness, that's when you can allow the maturity to enter, and that's when the knowledge will come.
Yeah, bro.
And
100.
I think that when you look back, that when we was in school, like there wasn't mental health wasn't a subject. It wasn't even spoke about. It was only really now in the last say 5-10 years you would have heard this. It was obviously what he's around, but as in. There's more of
awareness.
It's more awareness, and which is good, and it's good that obviously we're highlighting this today. And like for me, I just think that like I've, as you said, I know you hadn't experienced, but I have experienced anxiety and depression. I've been in periods where it's like I have been in that pit, but pre that it was, oh my God, that person could never be depressed, or that person could never be that anxious. Like what really? Because I didn't have enough education. There wasn't enough education around it for me to try and understand. I didn't, and I also didn't want to. I didn't. There wasn't enough around me that I didn't need to understand. It didn't affect my life as such. Until it does affect my life. And then when it does, it's true. It's obviously true. But it's humbling, because it's as much as at that time you're in that pit. There are times where you like literally. I say it to people, and it's mad. Like you having a shower in that day is progress. Like there's been days where just getting up and having a shower.
Swear down, my done.
Yeah, I swear to God, bro. And it's like there is times where I haven't been able to manage my emotions at work. I've been on the train, I've been on the tube. You know, a man has seen me crying on the tube, and that it's only because of just not being able to manage your emotions. But that all comes from, as we were talking about before, I think like trauma and anything can happen from on a perspective. Obviously my thing was like work related, and it was a bad time. I felt alone. I felt like there was no one there. And it then made you feel that when you are alone, as you say, you're on your own, that voice in your head that you think is sort of trying to send you a negative path, and sometimes it is. And for me now, if I knew now, I knew then, it's like that is my friend. That's my best friend. That is my person that's going to get me out of my rut. Like, because this is me, and it's more of just a power that I had to generate myself, and it does take a while. And unless you want to, it's like quicksand, where you have to still and plan how you're getting out. Don't try to run straight away. Obviously you can try different methods to deal with it and coping mechanisms effectively. I don't really like to understand. I don't like the term coping mechanisms, because sometimes what people define as coping mechanisms, other people, it's just their way of life. It's what they just like to do.
100.
And why shouldn't you not make that decision for your own life? I just think that with mental health, there is definitely not much being done about it in terms of I think that a lot of black people, especially in the city, just from my own experience, don't have enough role models in the city. So when they do go through mental health issues, there isn't anyone of an older, more senior position who can actually directly relate. So, and obviously where we've got the prejudice anyway, black people, I think, have the added pressure of mental health issues on top with the city living with the racist undertone and everything else that comes with it.
Yeah, I understand. I understand where you're coming from with that, because if you look at our history in European countries, it's like we've almost been forced to ignore the trauma that we've been through, because that was back then. And you've heard this same old story before, right? Oh, it was back then, this, that, and the third, and people have spoken about it loads. But there is truth in saying that, you know, you can pass trauma down genetically, you know. You can pass trauma down genetically because it's a you know, genes you register experiences of what's happened to you and how you're gonna survive in the next generation. You can transfer that on, and so, you know, coming from a position of, you know, extreme racism and prejudice, and not feeling like you are a part of society, and then the message that you give your kids, and then they grow with a certain understanding of what their position should be in society based on the troubles that have come before, and they see elements of those same problems and troubles that their parents had in their own experience, and it just reignites the thing in them again. You get me? The trauma continues itself. Do you know what I'm saying? Hence the reason why they kind of keep that paradigm running of making sure subconsciously you feel inferior when there's no real rational explanation for why you should feel like that. But it's like sometimes your everyday experiences just confirm this anxiety and this thing that you have about you about being a black person. I can understand. It's not something I can say I've ever felt about myself. But I have enough of the empathy to understand how someone not necessarily same mental strength as mine or confidence as me or understanding of myself that I've been able to develop can feel vulnerable in them ways. Yeah, and fragile in them ways.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I think only now at 32 I can admit, so I can say it with my chest that I've been fragile to that extent. Yeah. And at times, like, you've seen me, you know how confident I am. I could public speak. I've been the best man twice. Like, I can have that and connect like that. But there are times where I'm weak. There are times where I have had to work on my emotional response. But it then always goes back to, do we want to change?
I keep referring back to it. It's how you remain on the center point. You're never gonna really get rid of your flaws. You're in an experience of reality that's flawed by design. The fact that there's duality, you know, where there's wrong, there's right, where there's dark, there's light. We're in a realm of duality, right? So there's gonna be flaw and error and all the stuff in between. So if that's inherent in nature, the whole point then it should be about reconciling those two opposite ends of the spectrum by understanding and observing and recognizing there is a positive and negative outcome and impact of this thing that I'm going through. Which one do I begin to decide to choose? And that only comes from getting to a place of understanding that you are the one that creates your own reality, because it's in the mind. Universe is mental. All is mental. So you're the one that decides. And this goes back to your question about, do people really have control? This is what I was pausing me thought to like to explain it properly. You do have control. Technically you should have control. But it's about becoming aware of that, of the fact that you have that ability. It's like unlocking a new method or move on a computer, on a game and that. Until you found out, right, man could do this and flip the script, you're treading water. You know what I'm saying? Just wanted to get onto, for you, obviously acknowledging the fact that you had your own mental health challenges. Yeah. How has spirituality specifically helped you in where you are and getting to the state that you are, if at all?
I would say
Especially
Massively. I'd say massively.
Go on.
And I'd say spirituality first sort of came into my life, I'd say negatively, but in a positive, obviously, outcome because of the impact that it's had. But it was an energy thing. I believed in spirituality, that it existed, that it had the power to influence people, but it hadn't directly impacted me. Something that I believed in, but I just didn't really see any impact it had in my life. The example that I would give is that I was around a bunch of people that I really didn't want to be around, and I felt an energy that was just like I wanted to leave my body and just to get away from these people.
Yeah.
Like this, it was something that I was never experienced before, and I remember when I was abroad and I was in a room on my own, and that voice that we talk about, that voice was louder than ever, and I just remember just thinking, I can't be around this energy. This energy is such a bad thing, and I need to actually start making better decisions about the people that I actually put myself around. And I think it led to, obviously, my anxiety. And I think my connection to spirituality is through anxiety. And it's crazy that was my door opener to it, but as I said, I've got put in a situation where I had to experience, obviously, that anxiety, and it was a negative for me then. And it was a long period for me to actually, as I say, understand that feeling, understand how that's impacted my life. Because I believe, as you went back to like, what do you think the reason is? I think that it was I had the anxiety of fear of being put into a situation where I was going to make a bad decision, or being put into a situation where I think that I couldn't control that decision. And that's what I think that I feared the most. As I obviously matured, as I would like to say, I believe that I'm more in control of who I allow to control my energy around me, sort of thing. So that's a big thing for me. It's almost like that made me realize how important not just energies are, but sort of the influence that people's energies can have just in your surroundings. And since then, it's paid dividends to my life. Like, I now only carry myself around good energies, people that elevate myself, people that are on what I'm on, and I'm not on badness and never really have been, but it's one of them ones where it's just humble. I'm very humbled. I know what I want out of life now. I feel I've got a clear vision. I actually, what came with the anxiety was the up at 4 a.m. and can't sleep, blah blah. I can't tell you the last time I couldn't have a good night's sleep. Like, it's about managing it. I think that we all, to some extent, have some sort of issue, as you would define it, but if it's not an issue, if you're managing it, it's not an issue.
It's like finding. It's almost like, and correct me if I'm not describing your thing properly. It's like you found a mechanism within yourself to acknowledge what you're going through for what it is, and rather than let it hinder you, you found a way for it to empower you. What is this showing me?
I triggered the awakening, That's mad. I could have let the anxiety define me. I was off work at that time.
Yeah, I remember all of that.
It was one that I could have stayed off work. I could still be off work now. And it was like just bleeding that I'm not that person. I want to work, I want to earn my bread, I want to be out there and stuff. And it's like that. I think that there's so much of the government and whatever media that does steer people down roads where they want to put them in a category of mental health, and their remedy for it isn't actually benefiting their life. And the remedy should actually just be giving them the tools that they can make the conscious decision themselves where they want to go and how they want to deal with it.
But then you're getting onto 3, 4. Then you get on to people being able to determine for themselves, what's right and what's wrong for them, informed by universal law and understanding the non-physical part of oneself. Do you know what I'm saying? You're better equipped. The way you just described what your thing was, the reason why I was laughing, smiling while you was talking. It was like you decided to take control, responsibility of your thoughts, and automatically you just said it changed the environment you was going to be in. I can't have certain energy around, man. I can't have certain girl around, man. Do you get me? That's just not my makeup. I need to just make sure I pattern in my frequency, my lane, my vibration. Do you know what I'm saying? And then your actions started to conform with the environment you chose to put yourself in, because the mind said, "Ayaso we a step." And do you know what I mean? As a disciple of the higher self, as a disciple of Christ, you followed suit. You followed the higher self. Do you get me? And the end result, the fruits, the end result, the physical example end result is you sitting here. Yeah. I remember all of them times, bro.
Yeah.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
And working through it, and do you know what I'm saying? So, come on, my God.
And that's it. And at the end of the day, it's like, obviously, with me, luckily, I'm how I am in terms of I've been able to speak to you, to my brothers, to people around me, and we're support network effectively. And I think that, and I would urge anyone out there as well, just like, if you are going through anything, talking is probably the best starter, or it's the best catalyst to actually get the help you need, or to start benefiting the people that are around you. And you may consider yourself being a burden, but you're never a burden, and you matter, everyone does matter. And I just think that we just need to be talking about it more, because I think that, especially for me, obviously being a young black man, it isn't like I just only want black men to talk more about mental health. I want all men to talk about mental health. I want everyone to talk about mental health.
I can only agree with that. I think for me, in my opinion as well, you can't call yourself the man them, if we can't be real with one another.
Yeah.
The friendship that's required for me to come to my yard and around what's precious to man and them things. You get me? If we can't level with hearts and that, and show, Lord, listen, man's been going through this. I'm not supposed to make that normal. Do you know what I mean? Like, we had obviously a gathering here the other day. I mean, we made that normal amongst ourselves, and I was saying to you, see what we just done here? Yeah. Can easily be replicated. Yeah. Easily be replicated by everyone, leveling, coming of the same understanding of, you know what I mean? Man's here to support you as friends. Friendship is more than just what we can do for one another.